This video is brought to you by Boxu. Get $15 off your first order with my code Gaijin15 and link in the description. Hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here. So about a month ago, we did a cultural retrospective on the Pocky and Rocky franchise in celebration of its newest entry, Reshrined, finally hitting the public scene.
Well, in Japan anyway. Last I checked, it was the 24th of this month when it was scheduled to drop stateside.
Yeah, and it really is that version that we're getting here over in the States that gave me some pause and really instigated this particular video. As mentioned in that previous video that you should totally go check out, as it's a complete cultural breakdown in the role of Miko and Shinto and a deconstruction of the folklore tropes of my favorite yokai of all time, and it's criminally underviewed because I had the goal to be straight-faced about advertising its thumbnail and not be clickbaiting stupid. Thanks, YouTube algorithm! I mentioned that there were 3 new characters making their debut in the Pocky and Rocky roster, with one, unlike the others, being not a unique character calling back to Japanese concepts of yokai or Shinto, but rather she's a literal copy and paste kami right out of the Kojiki, name and all, Ame no Uzume. But something struck me as odd while I was bouncing up and down in my chair like an idiot, excitedly watching the announcement trailers between the Japanese release of Kiki Kai Kai Kuro Manto no Nazo and Pocky and Rocky Reshrined. You see something missing here?
Oh dear, did the Western localization team give her the Miss Keen treatment?
Sure looks like it. I assume done for the sake of the ESRB E10 rating this game's touting around at the time of writing. Now, I know I'm the doofus that coined the hashtag boobsnotblood back in my greener days of YouTube content creation, but that's not what made me facepalm through my forehead in this instance. For you see, by making this one simple change, this one seemingly harmless difference for the sake of broad marketability and brain-dead moral passivity, the localization team have effectively stamped out the deep-rooted cultural importance of arguably one of the most important Shinto kami to have ever been pinned in Japanese creation myth. That being said, before folks get indignant, let me make something very, very clear. This is not to say that Ame no Uzume is 100% defined by her double bubbles.
Double bubbles?
Look, if we're gonna keep this video monetized, we gotta get creative with the euphemisms. Sorry folks, one of the uphill battles of being a YouTuber in this day and age is the inability to speak about adult matters in even an educational light without the threat of demonetization and the algorithm blasting us into forced obscurity. But despite the subject matter, this is culture, and culture is important, even if it doesn't mesh well with our conservative Western mindsets. But anyway, like I said, it's not that these 2 aspects of Ame no Uzume is what defined her purpose and importance in Shinto creation myth, but rather, it's how she used them to literally save Japan and the world twice. But before I can unravel the 2 marvelous tales of how Ame no Uzume single-handedly saved humanity from dark and dismal deaths with her lady lumps, there is one important key principle that I need to explain. Something people gotta understand is that how we view physical intimacy here in the West versus how Japan sees it in the East is completely different. To quote Japan's creation story from the Kojiki, Izanagi no Mikoto asked his spouse Izanami no Mikoto, saying, "How was your body formed?" She replied saying, "My body, though it be formed, has one place which is formed insufficiently." Then Izanagi no Mikoto said, "My body, formed though it be formed, has one place which is formed to excess. Therefore, I would like to take that place in my body which is formed to excess and insert into the place in your body which is formed insufficiently, and thus give birth to the land. How would this be?" Izanami no Mikoto replied saying, "That would be good." The idea, as I understand it, between men and women in an intimate relationship within a Shinto context is that physical attraction occurs, and from that consensual attraction, life is created. There is no taboo here. The idea of physical attraction is a purely natural thing that literally gives birth to the continuation of life. Nobody is going to hiffle because they had a suggestive thought about a way someone looked and liked it. It's not only normalized in a Shinto context, it's actually encouraged. Physical attraction happens. It's normal. Now, while that might seem like a freaking no-brainer to anyone who understands how population reproduction works, I have to then ask why Ame no Uzume would have to undergo a double mastectomy in this game's localization from Japan to the US. Why do we in the West continue to demonize the female form as if it's something unnatural? We all know the answer to these questions. Thus, it's important to understand the discrepancy between Japan and the US when it comes to this concept. Otherwise, the stories I'm about to tell you won't have nearly the same impact to you as it did for me. Alright then, Ame no Uzume. So for starters, a little introductions in order. Ame no Uzume no Mikoto is the natural kami of dawn, creativity, humor, and dancing. She is known by other names such as the Great Persuader, the Heavenly Alarming Female, and the Great Shining Goddess. It's believed that she and her husband's children were the creators of Kagura dancing and no theater performances. She is technically a servant of Amaterasu, the radiant sun goddess, and her symbol is the mirror, for it's said that as dawn breaks, the light of the sun reflects in the sea like a great mirror. And curiously enough, within Baki and Rocky, one of her greatest abilities is the production of mirrors that not only multiplies her projectiles, but also, through these mirrors, gives them target homing capabilities.
And for these stories?
Alright, so picture this. We got Amaterasu, literally light of the world and the sun, whose very existence brings life, vibrancy, and color. Of course, being the source of all good things, she's admired by all the people and all the kami of the land. Except for one, her brother, Susanoo, kami of sea and squall. As all siblings do at one point or another, he grew jealous and furious with Amaterasu, to the point that he burned her golden rice fields and literally chucked a flayed horse into her weaving loom. Equal parts horrified and saddened, she exiled Susanoo to the mortal realm while she exiled herself to Amano Iwato, Heaven's rocky cave. There, she withdrew herself from the world like an early BC hikikomori, and without the presence of Amaterasu, the world fell into darkness, cold, and death. Now, considering kami are all essential spirits to the natural world, this was a rather dramatic pickle that they were in. No sun meant no nature, no plants, no animals, no people. And none of them knew how to get Amaterasu out of Amano Iwato, so what did they do? Well, Omoikane, kami of wisdom, intelligence, and counsel, came up with a smashing idea. Throw a party!
Well, not just any party. The Yayorozu no Okami under Omoikane believed that if they made enough of a happy ruckus, it might get Amaterasu curious enough to come out and see what had everyone in such good spirits. A bit of semi-reverse psychology, you might say. But Amino Uzume had a grand idea to add on to Omikane's. She hung a bronze mirror and a Magatama bead of jade on a tree just outside Amano Iwato. All that was needed now was for the rest of the kami to make enough jolly cheer for Amaterasu to get curious. You know, I kinda wonder, what kind of food and drink do you think they would have at that party?
I mean, folklorically speaking, we are talking prehistoric times, but considering the ritualistic sharing of food to kami called shinsen, where Shinto priests would prepare food to be shared with the kami, I assume they'd have a lot of seafood, vegetables, and fruits, but also things like sake, mochi, and likely some matcha goodies. I mean, matcha has been a celebrated part of Japanese culture for over 800 years, and it just so happens to be the theme of this month's Bokusu.
Well, more specifically, Midori moments.
With spring and early summer comes the Tsuyu season in Japan, a time where any given day could yield a 45% chance for rain. But with all that rain comes an explosion of all the great greenery that Japan, and its food, is known for. And no, I didn't pull that vocabulary and statistic from Google, but rather from the cultural booklet that each bokusu is well known for, filled with info on not only each snack in its home region, but Japanese vocabulary and information on the season or celebration. From Hokkaido to Kagoshima, this month's bokusu showcases some of the country's best family-made Midori munchables from all over the country, with my personal favorites being the Toritama Bamchuken matcha with its near tree-like appearance, yet containing a soft, fluffy, almost earthly sweetness to it, the Solka Matcha Senbei, combining a rice cracker crunch with the sweet yet mellow nuttiness of matcha, and finally, you can't have a box themed around green without some tea. In this case, the slight tang of the Satsumache Yuzu Ryokucha green tea. I know a lot of you have seen bokusu many a time in my videos, and yes, this is technically a sponsored message, but considering it's still a long way out before I can go back to Japan on my own terms, having this little slice of traditional Japan has been a way for me to keep my homesickness in check and my palate still exploring family-created flavors of the country. It's something I've really come to look forward to each and every month. So if you'd like to share in this love of some of Japan's best family-owned and family-made traditional tastes from all over the country, hit on my link in the description and use the code Gaijin15 to get $15 off your first-time bokusu order. Shipping's free, cancel anytime, and enjoy a flavor that you can't get anywhere else.
So come take a literal bite out of Japan's culture with bokusu.
But anyway, speaking of all this traditional food and celebration, you better believe the theoretical 8 million gods were partying up a storm to try and get Amaterasu out of her cave. Yet, still the stone that covered the mouth of Amano Iwato stood still. Understanding what was at stake, Amino Uzume overturned a washtub and began dancing upon it. Though no matter how hard she stamped, no matter how much she danced, and no matter how much noise the kami made, Amano Iwato didn't budge. Realizing this, she did the following, and I'm pseudo-quoting the Kojiki here. And stamping till Amino Uzume made it resound, and doing as if possessed, pulling out the mammalia of her double donkers, pushing down her skirt string all the way to her Mary Ellen. This elicited a grand cacophony of hoots, hollers, and laughter from the Yayorozu no Kami party. While some would say that this is little more than garden variety stripper activity, I would greatly disagree. Ame no Uzume was a master at blending comedy and farce with a little bit of playful flirtation in this particular performance. If I could westernize this concept in any way, I'd say that Ame no Uzume was an early master of burlesque. And her plan to capitalize on the natural attraction and attention she would receive worked like a charm. While other kami guffawed and hooted at Ame no Uzume's bare butterballs, Amaterasu finally cracked the rock that blocked Ame no Iwato to see what was happening, only to then see herself in Ame no Uzume's hung mirror, shining like the sun she literally was and realizing her own beauty, radiance, and importance to the world. Thus, she emerged from Ame no Iwato to shine light upon the world once more. Oh, and that jade Magatama jewel and that bronze mirror that Ame no Uzume used to lure out Amaterasu, those became two of the 3 imperial regalia of Japan, the country's greatest symbols of divinity. Which, again, curiously enough, you actually see Ame no Uzume using both of these items in Pokken Rocky Reshrined. So, in short, while many of us in the West wouldn't think much of this subtraction of Ame no Uzume's supple spheres, it's a rather massive disservice to the actual cultural Ame no Uzume, for it was her assets that she cunningly capitalized on in order to literally bring light and life back into the world.
So what about this other story? I'm sure a lot of people have already heard of Ame no Uzume's legendary burlesque show, but what is this second one you keep talking about?
Ah, that one involves the Lady Kami meeting her future husband. So, it's been some time after the incident of Ame no Iwato. Amaterasu is ready to pass on leadership of the mortal world to her grandson, the first emperor of Japan, Ninigi no Mikoto, but there was a bit of a snag. See, at this point in time, the Earth itself wasn't under the control of mortals. It was actually still under the jurisdiction of the leader of the Earth Kami, Sarutahiko no Mikoto. Knowing the potential difficulties in convincing Sarutahiko to give up the Earth to mortal rule under her grandson, Amaterasu sent with him her secret weapon, Ame no Uzume. As expected, Sarutahiko refused to pass control of the Earth to Ninigi no Mikoto. But Ame no Uzume, full of charm, wit, and a rockin' pair that she knew she could capitalize on, was able to convince Sarutahiko through talk and maybe a little flirtation to allow Amaterasu's grandson to rule over the Earth.
I mean, that seems a little manipulative, don't you think? Ame no Uzume completely swaying Sarutahiko by gussing up her exposed girls to him?
Well, if that was the end of the story, sure, that would have been kinda rough. But Ame no Uzume and Sarutahiko no Mikoto eventually got married, had a great relationship with one another, and even had kids who went on to create Kagura and No, as previously mentioned.
So what you're saying is, without Ame no Uzume's sweet potatoes, not only would we not have No and Kagura, not only would the Dominion of Earth not be ruled by humans, but all life as we know it would cease to exist?
In a word, yes. As I've said, Ame no Uzume was not a kami defined by her curves, but rather her position as a kami of dance, mirth, and merriment naturally allowed her to cunningly use what her mama gave her, thus saving all of literal existence from eternal darkness and death. So to take away her womanly features, to literally sand off the accented natural curvature of her body, is to undercut and depreciate who Ame no Uzume was and what she was able to accomplish for the good of the Earth. In all depictions I could find of this kami, from the ancient to the modern, who she was and how she was not withheld from her artistic renditions. So then, why should this be any different? Now, am I saying that we should riot against the man and start a Reddit thread asking why the West is so obsessed with this conservative concept despite cultural context and demand Ame no Uzume's whoppers returned? Nah, cause I think that's a tad extreme. Rather, I want to request to localizers both in the business now and those up and coming to please really carefully think about the changes you make to any piece of media for the sake of broad audience appeal. Not only will it gain the ire of nerds like myself who make a 12-minute video about the issue, but you might very well unwittingly upset the people of a culture whose product you're trying to localize. In the grand scheme of things, me complaining about Ame no Uzume's lack of luster lumps is small potatoes compared to what it could have been. All I'm saying is this. Be careful what you change, because one simple difference could be the debasement of a cultural's critical icon. Thanks for watching, everyone, and a big thanks to Bulksu for their support of these videos. If you want to experience real traditional Japanese culture for not only your tongue, but also your brain, check out my link in the description and use the code Gaijin15 to get $15 off your first order. We got some spicy options up over on Patreon for the next video, including another kick-ass babe from Japanese history, and possibly a deep dive into Geralt of Rivia's greatest hunts yet, Bloodthirsty Yokai. So be sure to check that poll out and stay tuned for those future videos. But until next time, everyone, this is Gaijin Goombah, signing out.